It was a quiet Tuesday evening in Los Angeles. The sun had just set, casting a warm, golden hue over the city's skyline. The streets, usually bustling with traffic, were now a mix of late commuters and city lights. In the midst of the calm, a sleek, matte black Tesla Model S Plaid cruised down Sunset Boulevard. The car, instantly recognizable to anyone who followed cutting-edge technology, was gliding silently, its futuristic design standing out in stark contrast to the vintage buildings lining the street. The driver, who appeared to be in his late 40s, wore a baseball cap pulled low over his face. He seemed to be lost in thought, his hands relaxed on the steering wheel. Little did anyone know this was no ordinary man behind the wheel. In fact, the world would soon discover that the driver of this remarkable vehicle was none other than Elon Musk, the billionaire entrepreneur and CEO of Tesla and SpaceX. As the Tesla approached a busy intersection, a Los Angeles police officer, cruising on his patrol bike, noticed the car speeding ever so slightly, just enough to draw attention, but not enough to make a major fuss. The officer radioed for backup and followed the vehicle, now pacing it as it made its way toward a quieter part of the city. The officer activated his siren and lights, signaling the car to pull over. Musk's car slowed down and came to a halt beside the curb. The officer dismounted and approached the vehicle cautiously, hand on his holstered gun, just as a precaution. "Good evening, sir. Do you know why I pulled you over?" the officer asked, his tone neutral but alert. Elon, unfazed, rolled down the window and looked up at the officer. "I'm assuming it was for speeding, or maybe for being too awesome," Musk replied with a wry smile, clearly in a lighthearted mood. The officer chuckled nervously, taken aback by the response, but quickly regained his professionalism. "Just a moment, sir. I'll need to check your license and registration." As the officer began to ask for Musk's identification, he couldn't help but notice something unusual through the tinted windows of the Tesla. On the passenger seat, stacked neatly, were several boxes. They were all covered with a green tarp, but the outlines of the boxes made them look far too bulky to be something simple like groceries or equipment for a test launch. The officer's curiosity piqued, and his unease began to rise. "What's in the boxes?" the officer asked, trying to sound casual but failing to mask his suspicion. Musk, leaning back in his seat, shrugged. "Oh, just a few prototypes for an upcoming project. You know, the usual." Despite the vague answer, the officer's training kicked in. He glanced over at the passenger side of the car again, this time noticing what appeared to be wires sticking out from under the tarp. And there, on the back seat, were other strange objects, unusual gadgets and contraptions, many of which looked like something straight out of a science fiction movie. "What's going on, Mr. Musk? Is everything all right?" the officer asked, his voice now laced with uncertainty. Elon, realizing that his usual charm and humor weren't going to diffuse the situation, decided to address the officer's concerns head-on. "You're right to be curious. Honestly, it's not every day you get to see the future in the back of a car, huh?" Musk said, his smile widening as he opened the car door and stepped out. "What I've got here," Musk continued, gesturing to the items inside the car, "are prototypes for the next phase of our Mars mission. These devices are part of the technology we're working on to make life multi-planetary. I'm talking about sustainable energy production, advanced life support systems, and even a couple of quantum computers I've been tinkering with." The officer's eyes widened as he scanned the items inside the car. He had heard of Musk's innovations, of course, but the prospect of seeing some of them up close was something entirely different. There, in front of him, were the blueprints of humanity's future, quite literally packed into Elon Musk's car, a mix of advanced solar panels, sleek battery packs, and various compact mechanical devices that were not for public use. But what shocked the officer the most was an object sitting near the back window, an object that looked remarkably like a small, cylindrical spaceship engine, albeit a much smaller version. The officer, who had been trained to deal with all kinds of situations, stood speechless for a moment. Is that an actual rocket engine?" he finally stammered, still unable to fully grasp the scene unfolding before him. "Ah, that's a miniaturized version of one of our new propulsion systems. I've been testing it for something big, potentially launching soon, but don't worry, it's not going to explode. At least not yet," Musk said with a wink. The officer's mind raced, but he tried to remain calm. As the police officers stepped back, still somewhat in shock from what they'd just witnessed, Elon Musk remained composed. It wasn't the first time his eccentric nature and boundary-pushing ventures had made headlines. But this was different. The presence of cutting-edge tech, the remnants of future missions, and a few things that could only be described as pure science fiction sitting in the back of his car was something the public wasn't quite ready for. Yet it was happening right in front of them. With the crowd now growing larger, some people pulled out their smartphones, snapping pictures and recording videos. News outlets soon began reporting the unusual incident, and within minutes, social media exploded with speculations. Breaking, Elon Musk pulled over in LA. What's in his Tesla? A few tweets captured the general sentiment. Birdie Space Fan 42. Only Igor Elon Musk could get pulled over and turn it into an impromptu tech reveal. Turn our Tesla, be your Mars, our tech's unleashed. This has to be the most epic routine traffic stop of all time. For future tech vibes, Elon Musk could literally launch a car into space with the stuff in that trunk. Among the crowd, there were a few familiar faces, journalists, tech enthusiasts, and fans of Musk's work. The buzz around the scene was palpable, with people trying to figure out what exactly Musk was up to. An hour passed before the officers, after consulting with SpaceX's legal department and examining the contents of the car more thoroughly, gave Musk the all-clear to leave. There were no criminal charges, and while the police had originally been concerned about potential safety hazards or unexplained equipment, it was soon made clear that everything was legally authorized. The officers, still processing the surreal event, didn't know how to wrap up the situation. Mr. Musk, you're free to go, but we'll need you to file a report with us on the tech and confirm that everything is up to code with the right authorities. One officer said, handing him back his license and registration. Elon nodded. Absolutely. You'll have all the paperwork you need, but don't worry, nothing you saw today is going to explode. His signature smirk returned. He turned to get back into his car, but before he did, he paused and addressed the officers with an almost conspiratorial grin. By the way, I'm also working on a self-driving pizza delivery drone. Maybe that's the future of your lunch breaks. Just think about it. The officers, though still slightly confused, let out a laugh. There was a strange comfort in knowing that at least one thing about this situation made sense. It was classic Musk. As he slid back into the driver's seat, the officers waved him off. Musk gave them a friendly nod and started the car, which hummed to life without a sound. The Model S Plaid, always a symbol of advanced tech, accelerated smoothly into the night, leaving the officers, the crowd, and the curiosity behind. Meanwhile, in SpaceX headquarters, back at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California, the aftermath of the incident was already creating waves. The company's PR team was fielding calls from reporters, trying to manage the sudden influx of interest. But Musk, ever the innovator, saw it as an opportunity. I don't mind the publicity. In fact, we should run with it. There's no such thing as bad press, Musk said during a video call with his senior engineers. He leaned back in his chair, a twinkle of amusement in his eyes. And who knows, maybe some of those people from the crowd will be interested in joining us on our next Mars mission. Stranger things have happened. The engineers chuckled, but they knew Musk wasn't entirely joking. After all, this was a man who had publicly stated that he wanted to make humans an interplanetary species, and he often sought out the unlikeliest of allies, be it billionaires or random social media users. Speaking of Mars, Musk continued, let's make sure the next-gen propulsion system is ready for testing next week. We need to stay ahead of the curve, and that mini-engine prototype, we can't afford any delays. One of the engineers, who had just read the news reports, hesitated before responding. Elon, are you sure it's a good idea to bring such high-tech equipment so close to the public? I mean, a lot of people are going to start asking questions about our plans. Musk's face softened, and he leaned forward. Sometimes it's not about keeping things secret. It's about igniting curiosity. People have to believe in the impossible for it to become possible. Besides, if they're not asking questions, they're not paying attention. Back to the streets of Los Angeles. In the days following the incident, the story continued to make waves. The local police department even issued a statement praising the professionalism of the officers involved and clarifying that no dangerous or illegal activity had been found in the vehicle.